All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and we are in part 2 of probably one of the most requested videos a lot of you guys have been asking me to make, to talk about B58 upgraded turbos. And keep in mind, I already posted a video about hybrid turbos, so if you're interested in that, check out the link in the video description, and then that video will talk more about the different hybrid turbo options that are out there. In this video, we are going to be focusing on full frame turbos, so people that are looking for top mount kits, bottom mount kits, whatever you wish. These are for full frame turbo kits that are currently available for the B58 engine. So in this video, we'll talk about what a full frame turbo is. We'll talk about my philosophy around how I pick a full frame turbo. And then also we'll talk about some of the specific options that are on the market and my thoughts behind them that will hopefully help you decide if you're trying to consider one of these. And as always, if there is a kit that I haven't mentioned in this video, leave a comment down below. Let me know what I should be looking into, and potentially I can add that into a future review. But let's go ahead and jump into this. So first of all, what is a full frame turbo? There are a lot of companies out there that just make turbos. They aren't designed to fit to any specific engine or platform, and it's really up to you to figure out how to make it work on your car. So that's where these full frame turbo kits come into place. They use an aftermarket turbo from a company like Precision or Garrett, and they make an adapted hardware kit to fit that turbo on your engine. So it will come with the turbo, of course, but also an exhaust manifold, a charge pipe, a downpipe, all of your oil and coolant lines, and basically everything you need to adapt that off-the-shelf turbo to fit on your car. Now, every setup is going to be unique because even if you have the same engine in different vehicles, the space in the engine bay is going to be different. The location of the turbo is going to be different. So these are usually much more expensive than hybrid turbos because they are much more custom and they come with more components. So really the downside is it's a lot more money and a lot harder to install. But the upside is they make a lot more power. There are turbos out there that are able to support 1,500, 1,600 horsepower, where a stock location turbo or a hybrid turbo could never accomplish those kinds of figures. So it's kind of up to you to decide what your goals are to where a top mount turbo kit is worth it for you. In my case, I spent all the extra money on a top mount turbo and still only made like 600 or 650 horsepower. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to decide, you know, do you want a full frame turbo? Do you want the look and the sound and everything that comes with a top mount turbo kit? Or do you want the extra power and capability with it? Then in that case, these options are going to be worth it for you. Now, usually what I tell people at this point is pick a turbo that's rated for 1,000 horsepower. It's pretty straightforward. I used to look for turbos that were more rated around 700 to 800 horsepower, but the newest turbos spool so quick that even an 1,000 horsepower rated turbo is going to be great to drive on the street. And you can see a lot of dynos from people like Body and stuff that test out a lot of these precision turbos, and they show how quickly they're capable of spooling. And it shows that they get plenty of torque below 5,000 or even 4,000 RPM with plenty of top end power to support your goals. So that's where I think these turbos really shine. You're able to get a much bigger turbo than what you typically would look at with a stock location turbo. And due to it being a much bigger exhaust housing and bigger aftermarket manifold, it still spools very quick and has good driving characteristics. Now, if you're looking at aftermarket turbos from a reputable source, they should have some compressor charts available so that you can see how it flows and what kind of power it's capable of at different boost levels. Basically, you want to look for a turbo that's making around 100 pounds per minute of airflow. So that's where you want to look to find a turbo that's capable of 1,000 horsepower, and that should put you in a good range for good performance and drivability with your B58. Personally, I think I am very much leaning to a 6870 turbo. If I were to pick one today, the Precision 6870 Next Gen just seems like an amazing performer. It makes good power, it spools really quickly, and it's relatively simple. And a lot of people are going with bigger and bigger turbos nowadays. 6870 used to be the big dog, then it went to 7275, and now people are running 7480s, and I'm sure it'll continue to get bigger. If I haven't heard about it, it might already be happening, but I think a 6870 is the sweet spot for our cars. So I used to tell people something like a 6466 would be better, but I would genuinely go with the 6870 if I had to do it all over again. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the list, and let's see some of the main top mount and bottom mount turbo kits that I've seen for the B58 engine. All right, so let's do it again. So we're gonna jump into the list, starting off again with the turbo kit that I am running, or at least the company that made my turbo kit, and that is DocRace. So for those that don't know, my 440i has a DocRace top mount turbo kit. Unfortunately, my specific turbo kit is no longer for sale, but it uses an EFR 8374 turbo. So when DocRace first started making top mount kits, they made it work with an EFR turbo that used your stock electronic wastegate, and that allowed you to bypass a lot of the limitations we had with tuning at the time. So you didn't have to disable the wastegate and find an external boost controller to manage like an external wastegate. And that way you were basically able to tune it just like a stock turbo. And that's basically how my car has been set up for the past 5 years. So it works great. I love it. But now you no longer have the EFR option simply because EFR turbos are much more expensive and much harder to keep in stock, much harder to get a hold of. So he now makes turbo kits for precision turbos, and that's kind of what you see here. So it comes with external wastegates with dumps under the car. It's going to be a little bit louder, but with things like motive reflex, you can tune it perfectly fine. It doesn't really give you a significant downgrade or difficulty in setting up the car. We've got a lot of progress in the past 5 years, and it's not something that I would look away from. So for me personally, I would go with a next gen 6870 and probably with the 1.5 runners. I think the 1.25 are fine, and it saves you a lot of money. So honestly, I might go that route, but I think the 1.5 would be a welcome upgrade. It's really just kind of up to you depending on how quick you want the spool to be and how much power you want to push. I don't think necessarily the 1.25 would choke up the 6870, and the next gen precision turbos still spool plenty fast. So, really just kind of up to your wallet. If you want the extra couple hundred RPM of spool and performance, go with the larger runners and you'll be able to enjoy that. But I think this turbo kit is great. For a while it was cast, then it went back to welded, and I do think that the welded design is a little bit better. It's not as heavy, and overall, it just looks a lot better as well. So I got that kit. I also got my kit coated. So you make sure that it's got like the thermal coating to minimize how much heat is transferring to other components inside of your engine bay. And I also heat wrapped my downpipe. So all of that I think works well. And this kit comes with everything you need to delete stuff that no longer works now that you're ditching the stock turbo. They also, of course, have Gen 2 options, so you can get it for your M340i, M240i, M440i, and of course, they've got options for the Supra as well. Again, precision turbos, so you can pick which one you want. Or if you already have a turbo, then you can just buy a hot parts kit and install your own turbo yourself. So overall, I think it works great. It's pretty reasonably priced, at least in the space of top mount turbo kits, and they're all made to order. So, you just give it a couple weeks and you should be good to go. I do also like that this design is basically one of the first, if not the first, B58 top mount turbo kits, at least the first one that I was made aware of. And the design has pretty much stayed the same since inception. Like I said, he switched between the welded design to the cast version and back to welded, but the location of the runners and everything is generally the same. It's just kind of tried and true. And if you've been making a turbo kit for 5 years, you probably have it pretty locked in. So from that standpoint, I think they're pretty solid. Now, the next one we have to talk about is KLM. And while I have no experience with them, the default thing is like you see right here, all the fastest cars are running this turbo kit pretty much. At least they were up until maybe TX2K this year. Now we've got a couple new records with different turbo kits, but the KLM Savage kit was like the default option. And I think Mikey Body came out swinging with the kit, and everybody saw the records that he was breaking. And so people started jumping on this, and it became the hottest thing that you could buy. So with that in mind, if you go to the turbo kits, you can see all the different options for like the B58 and S58. And I mean, I think they are great. It looks just like a lot of other turbo kits that I see. It has a lot of cool options, and of course you can pick your turbo. So again, I would probably pick a 6870, and you can get the different features like the oil catch can and the turbo blanket and stuff. So they try to provide a complete solution for people that just want to get everything at one time, know it all works together, and install it on their car and go. I also think that it's interesting there's an option to add a high flow cat. So it's pretty expensive and probably something that I don't know, I would expect it to last that long if you're pushing a lot of power, but it's an option for people that want to keep the smell away, or maybe you have like emissions testing or something, and so you need like an actual cat that people can see from a visual inspection. Whatever the case may be, that option is there. I think this is probably the only top mount kit that gives you the option of a catalytic converter. But despite all that, my biggest challenge with this kit is just how expensive it is. Like, look at the S58 kit. This is the Savage kit, again, that all the fastest cars run. Over $11,000, almost 12,000 when you start putting options on it. And so for me, that's a pill that's really hard for me to swallow just because I don't know what sets this turbo kit apart other than it's on a lot of the fastest cars. But I don't know if it's the length of the runners, the size of the runners, the size of the downpipe, whatever it is. I mean, when it's running the same turbo as any other kit, I struggle with why it's worth, $4,000 or $5,000 more than something comparable. So for me, I would say if budget is just not a topic, like you just will spend whatever you want something that works, then yes, this is absolutely a kit that can work for you. But if you want to save a little bit of money, I think you can easily hit your goals of 800 to 1,000 horsepower, even more than that, using other turbo kit options without spending quite this much. So that's more of like a budget question and how simple you want things to be. But yeah, I can't really say anything bad about it. Of course, like I said, I haven't ran this turbo kit myself, but there are a lot of different options. They even have 2-port options for people on the Gen 2s that still have a 2-port cylinder head. So I don't know, maybe one day we'll put one on the X7. But yeah, plenty of love to go around for anybody that wants to make more power. Next, we got to talk about Big Boost. And the reason why I always keep them in the conversation is because they are probably the first full frame turbo kit offering that came out for the B58. What I remember is they came out with a turbo kit before our DMEs were even unlocked. That's how excited they were to bring something to market. And of course, for a very long time, it had a lot of records for like dyno numbers and horsepower and stuff, just because nothing else was really able to compete. And so this is where it all kind of started. So we got to check out the B58 options. Obviously, they've got the MPR 1200. That was kind of like the OG tried and true kit. I also like to highlight that they still make an EFR turbo kit. So for people that ask me how else can they get a turbo kit like mine that reuses the stock electronic wastegate, this is basically your only other option that I know of currently that uses the EFR turbo with an adapter for the stock electronic wastegate, and you can tune it similar to a stock turbo, even technically run it on a stock map and it'll run fine. But yeah, they've got a lot of different options. I think the one, again, that I would go with is the Precision, just because it seems like the tried and true option right now, and everybody seems to be making really good power with it and having good drivability. So if you go to the Precision option, you can pick out your turbo. So we'll go to 6870 next gen, and boom, the pricing is extremely competitive. And granted, this is probably the only bottom mount turbo kit that I've seen that withstood the test of time. I've seen a lot kind of come and go, but this is the one that it seems like most people go with, and it allows you to run a really big intake, especially on Gen 1 B58s where the engine bay doesn't have a lot of space. Instead of having a top mount turbo with a really small filter that is using up basically all your real estate to the radiator support, this gives you like a full pipe going up to the stock intake location so you can run a really big filter. So lots of benefits here. I think the biggest downside is it's much harder to install than a top mount turbo, and it's a lot harder to service. So all the times that I've been in my turbo kit, especially like my first year of growing pains, blowing out gaskets and figuring out, what bolts were backing off and getting loose and stuff, that can be really frustrating to deal with, especially on a bottom mount turbo kit. It just makes it 10 times harder. So for me, that's one of the main reasons I went with a top mount turbo. I like the presentation, and then of course I like how much easier it is to work on, whereas with this kit, everything is kind of underneath the turbo. And on a B58 platform, where one of the biggest benefits is how easy it is to work on, we kind of get spoiled. And something like this feels like kind of we're going backwards. But plenty of performance to be had for your money if you go with a big boost turbo kit. The other thing I know some people have mentioned, they struggle with parts. So these kits are very complex, as you can see, a lot of different components, and they go to install it and realize they're missing a bolt or an adapter or a silicone hose or something like that. And so they get stuck. So I highly recommend making sure before you install this kit, if you do buy it, just do a quick inventory, make sure you have everything in your box. And if you don't, reach out to Juan. He should be able to get you right. And whatever you're missing, he'll be able to send it to you. So that's the only other thing I really hear about this is it seems pretty common that people say they started working on it and realized something was missing and had to wait a week or whatever to get the extra parts in. Now, the next kit we're going to talk about is Speedtech. And this is one I actually didn't really have on my radar until one of my buddies locally put it on his car, or actually, should say I found out he was running it on his car. So my buddy Eddie had it on his M240i and it was doing crazy times. The car was really fast, and now he swapped to a different kit, but he had really good performance while he was running this kit. And so I looked into it, and it is definitely a different design from other top mount turbo kits. I do like how the external wastegate recirculates into the downpipe, so that kind of helps keep noise down and it doesn't sound quite as obnoxious when the wastegate opens up. And it also has a couple other unique features, like with the 3-piece charge pipe and stuff like that. And of course, it has a bunch of different turbo options, which I think is maybe the only downside, because now you're trying to figure out which turbo you want to run. For me, again, I'd probably go for precision at this point, but Garrett would be another great option. Pulsar would be like a nice budget option. So there are so many different ones. It kind of makes it difficult for somebody that just kind of wants to go fast. But if you look at the precision options, we can go down to the next gen 6870. Again, it's pretty competitively priced and everything comes in the kit as you need it. So I think that this is a great option. The only other thing I think that is weird about it, besides having so many turbo options, is they retained the actual MAF sensor. So if you look in the middle of the charge pipe on this little bung, this is supposed to be where the MAF sensor goes. I feel like maybe they started designing this when our cars weren't as developed in the aftermarket space, and so they wanted a way to prevent us from getting a check engine light with the MAF sensor, and so they wanted to add something where you could plug the MAF sensor in. They also mention in like these details here that by having the MAF sensor there, they're able to tune it more effectively. My thing is, the MAF sensor was never designed to be after the turbo, so I struggle with believing that it's going to last in that location for a very long time. And if you're relying on it and it goes bad, that can cause a lot of issues. So to me, I'd much rather just delete the MAF entirely. I'm not sure how well it's going to handle the heat coming out of the turbo compared to, maybe the 70, 80 up to 100 degrees, or maybe slightly more depending on where you live, that it would experience in the intake path. That's no comparison to the 200 or 300 plus degrees that it's going to see in the charge pipe with compressed air. And to mention, that is compressed air. So it's building boost and creating pressure on the MAF sensor that's normally under vacuum. Maybe I'm just naive there, but to me, I feel like that's kind of a point of concern and not really something that I would want to use. So I think that this kit could do away with that personally. I don't think it's needed, but from their testing and experience, they determined that it was better to keep it and use it for tuning, and that's perfectly fine. Now, the last one we have to talk about is Spool Performance, and this is the one that I do not recommend. The reason is probably something that you can see pretty easily. The manifold is really bad. It's really poorly designed. I think their focus with this design was something that would be easy to install, not necessarily something that would perform well. And the people that I know that have installed this have commented that it spools extremely slowly. Every other top mount turbo kit that they see with similar turbos makes more torque sooner, and the torque has a much smoother onset. Whereas with this kit, it seems like it's absolutely nothing until 5,000 or 6,000 RPM, and then all of a sudden it hits you with everything. So it's very peaky, not very linear, not very responsive, especially like in lower RPM. And I think that's primarily due to the manifold design. Now, it does look like it would be easy to install. It is, again, pretty competitively priced, and it does look like it's supposed to be twin scroll, even though I'm not really sure where the runners actually go to. Like if it's cylinders 1, 2, and 3 split off from 4, 5, and 6, you can already see like how offset that seems. So from like an actual tubular manifold that you get with the stock turbo to this log manifold style, at least the way that it looks for an aftermarket turbo, it just seems like a pretty significant downgrade. So to me, this one is a no-go. If you want to try it, obviously you can feel free, especially when it goes on sale and stuff. Like I said, it gets very competitively priced, but from a performance and drivability and enjoyment standpoint, I don't think this is one of the good ones. And yeah, that pretty much sums it all up. So again, I know there are probably some turbo kits that I missed. Leave a comment down below and let me know what else I should be looking at, and I will try to put that in a future video. But these are some of the main ones that have been on my radar for a while. I feel like, you know, genuinely, they're mostly really good. You kind of get what you pay for in a lot of cases, but you don't have to pay crazy amounts to get good performance. It's really heavily dictated by the turbo that you pick. And then as long as you get a quality turbo kit that flows and, you know, makes good power, you're gonna have fun. And that's really what it's about for me. I think even though, again, I've got this huge top mount turbo kit that looks really impressive and is intimidating to people, and it's only tuned to make like 650 horsepower, while it looks like it makes 1,000, I still enjoy it all the same. I beat on it every time I drive the car. It sounds the way I want, it looks the way I want, and it performs great with great drivability. So honestly, I think you can't go wrong with a full frame as long as the budget allows for it. So that's really it for today. I think I covered everything between the two videos for hybrid and full frame turbos. So again, I'll have the hybrid version linked down below, but otherwise that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.